They're trying to see how my head works. Somebody's testing me.
The Kid Detective was written and directed by Evan Morgans and stars Adam Brody, and this film tells the story of a former kid detective, now in his 30s, who's still solving cases but really is getting nowhere in life. His cases are nothing but, finding cats, but he's met with this case of finding a dead teen, and so he's got to figure out who murdered the teen, the conspiracy within the town, all this kind of crazy stuff that's way bigger than he ever thought that he would ever do, and good Lord, I love this movie. I don't know if I would necessarily call this film a satire. It could be, depending on, your point of view of it. I think it's more a satire of the, seasoned detective kind of story where they're met with, this unsolvable case, or a case, they've never, dealt with before, or something along those lines. So if you look at it from that point of view, it's a fantastic satire of that, from the tropes of, using, a smooth jazz kind of score, inner monologues, alcoholism, things like that. It's done so well at satirizing that kind of stuff, and those were some of my favorite aspects of this movie. I absolutely love those moments. So I guess if there's something to know about me, I am a huge fan of mysteries and detective films and stuff like that. Knives Out is one of my all-time favorites, if not my favorite kind of murder mystery detective film. So to go from that to this and still have that kind of comedic edge, I really enjoy that, because I think going comedy for kind of mystery detective kind of stories, I think it's a great tool to really make us look at the ridiculousness of these kinds of films and the tropes that we constantly see, hiding in a closet or under a bed or things like this, of in reality that's a pretty stupid idea to do, and this film plays with those so perfectly. I love it when it does that kind of stuff, or when a car is following you, things like that. I loved it. I haven't seen many of Adam Brody's films. The only ones that I've seen that I can remember off the top of my head recently have been Shazam and Ready or Not. So to see him in a leading role like this, for me, for my first time, I thought that he was fantastic. He played a former kid detective who's an adult now, who never really grew up, really well. His performance is kind of a dark, deadpan kind of humor and style to it. It seems like he is trying to act like he's still this hardened detective, but he was a detective when he was 12 years old, finding who stole someone's lunchbox, or they would pay him in quarters to find their missing pencils, stuff like that. And now to a kid, that would be oh, I'm an amazing detective. But as we've seen in this film, his methods for going about how he solves cases and how he detects clues is a bit of a stretch in certain terms. So to see him starting to realize maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, and that he's realizing that he's starting to get in over his head with this case, was so interesting, and it was one of my favorite aspects of this film, and Adam Brody just delivered a fantastic performance. I absolutely loved him in this film. So yeah, kind of tying into what I was talking about with his character and the story and the kind of the satire of it all, it really does a good job with poking fun at the genre of detective stories as a whole, because when you get down to it, it is very recognizable and easy to decipher how these films are going to play out, the clues, who's done it, and everything like that. I love Knives Out, but when you see that person come on screen, it's just I think they might be the ones who've done it, and I think that was kind of the point. But here it really goes out of its way to really make you question this kind of genre as a whole and what we come to expect from it. So those aspects I was talking about, the score, the inner monologue, making fun of tropes, I absolutely loved those aspects of it, because it makes it feel that this is a classic detective film, and having the actors take their roles 100% seriously just adds to the comedy of it even more, because you realize that this is making fun of this genre, is having a fun time being these past older detective films, and you're having fun just watching it all unfold, just seeing this genre is it's kind of ridiculous, but I love it still. It's fantastic. I think the mystery as a whole is, it's a fun and interesting one, and I like it that they frame it this is his first actual legitimate case. He's never had to solve a murder before. There was a past, case that he never could solve that becomes important later on in the film. So I like the tie-in of that there, because I was wondering how it was going to tie in, and once it does, it's I see what you did there. Now, of course, a lot of detective films, there's some things that they kind of leave ambiguous during the film. Then once they show up, it's just oh, that kind of comes a bit out of nowhere. But again, that could be the point. But if you're trying to get us to like really like get invested in the mystery while still making fun of it, then you should still have like some of those aspects there for us to really be able to see it as a whole. And there's some things to this mystery, like, and how it all ends. Like, there could have been a bit more here and there as to hints and other things like that. But at the end of the film, like, once we get to that, like, last part of, like, when he gets really close to solving the case and it actually starts to turn, like, actually darker, I found it to be really interesting. And once it got to those darker places, I was like, this is actually working well, because they took those moments actually seriously and wasn't making fun of that kind of stuff, because it realizes and understands that this is still like, a kid was murdered. This is still a serious kind of thing. And it progresses throughout the film with his character, because he's starting to realize, like, oh, this isn't like, finding lunchboxes or cats. This is like, someone has died, someone has killed him, a murderer is out there. I might be getting it in over my head. And once he starts to realize that, the film starts to get a bit darker, not too much, but once it gets to those places, it actually works really well. And once you get to those final moments, it's just like, this is actually really good. I really like this. And I would love to see more films like this. I would love to see more kid detective films, see him, like, really start to, like, age up, start to finally become an adult, and see how it, like, morphs his psyche in a sense. Because at the end, like, you see that he's kind of been broken a bit by everything. So I really enjoyed that. So I would love to see more films. I don't know if it will, because this is in theaters right now. So it's just clear that Sony just wasn't worried about making money, so they were like, we can release in theaters now, it's fine. But it's a damn shame, because The Kid Detective is a really, really good movie. Overall, I absolutely love The Kid Detective. I love the satirization of the detective genre. I love Adam Brody's performance. I love the story. I love the mystery. I just loved pretty much almost every aspect of it. Again, I think what could have made it a bit stronger was having a bit more hints here and there about the mystery as a whole. But other than that, I found this to be incredibly fun, hilarious, and such a great time. I love this film. If you love detective films, then you'll absolutely love this one. I'm going to give The Kid Detective an 8 out of 10. I think this is one of my favorite films of the year now. Once it comes out on Blu-ray and digital, I highly recommend you check it out. You're going to have a great time. It's hilarious. If you love detective films, you're going to love this. So that was my review of The Kid Detective. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Let me know down in the comments below. Are there other detective films or satires you want me to look at? Leave those as well. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all the cool stuff, and I will see you all next time.